week's topic is going to be on colorism. I think it's definitely an important discussion to be had around the discrimination that a lot of people face based on the color of their skin. And I'm really excited. I have a really interesting panel that are going to really bring out their experiences and share it with you guys. So yeah, tune in for this week. So we're going to go right into it. I'm going to read the first statement. Don't sit in the sun, you will get too dark.
Quick question, did anyone ever get told that growing up?
You have.
I personally never experienced.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions that I was a bit like. Because did you get told that when you were growing up?
Not told, but I think in, like, for example, primary school, when it was like sunny, I think automatically like a lot of the black students would just like stay in the shade, or they wouldn't really want to be in the sun as much as like the other students. So I think it was mentality. It's not like teachers or parents went around saying don't. It's just something I guess was in our community.
When I was younger, I was told like if you stay in the sun for too long, you will get too dark.
Right.
And for me, that sounded like, so what's the issue with getting too dark?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's why I put the statement, because it's kind of pushing it. I don't want to say it, a narrative that getting too dark is something wrong with that.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, no, because that was one of the things I just like, I read it and I was like, because I've never had that experience. I've never been told, because I spent all my time outside as a child. Literally, I was always outside, so I was tanned. I was tanned, so yeah, so I was just wondering if everyone else had the same experience.
I think a lot of it is media based as well, especially like African American movies, where you see statements like that from like grandparents or things like that. I think it's very rare, or I haven't in my experience heard or seen it from like African parents in Britain, for example. So I think it's definitely something that is internalized through the media and through TV shows.
I think like when it was in school, like in primary school, I think it was during the time where a lot of the kids will say to each other, "You're too blick," or "You're." So that was sort of way to.
In primary school.
Yeah.
I think I got in primary school.
Wow, that's
Primary
amazing.
school, I think in primary school.
Yeah, I had quite a lot of primary school to like black boys and black girls, but I think now, obviously now it's like all dark skin looking good. So it's like I think as we've gotten older, more mature, we've sort of accepted it and a bit more. I don't know how to say it, but like less self-hating or not self-hating anymore. So like so when I go on holiday with my friends, we don't care if we're in the sun, we just enjoy it. But back in like primary school, it's more like, oh no, we don't want to get dark, I don't want to be called too blick, I don't want to be that kid where they can't see you when the lights turn off. So yeah.
Alright, I mean, like for me, it probably just came like as a joke. That was probably a line I was used to being told, probably as a joke.
Do you think that was a joke though?
I mean, back at the time, it seemed like that kids were mean, I guess, and that's.
Did you hurt though? Like, did it hurt you though? Like,
I mean, looking back, I'd say yes, but at the time, you feel like this is what we do at the time.
Okay.
And so you're like, you just try and come back with something else.
Did you make any light skin jokes?
No, because I don't think at the time there was nothing like a light skin joke. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think those jokes have come more so like later with time. Sensitive. Light skin people are sensitive, or you don't cry a lot.
I never heard that. Is it
light skin guys.
Yeah.
They're sensitive.
Yeah.
Sensitive.
To what?
Just
Like,
they're in your feelings.
No, right. Oh, like they get their feelings.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I think that clapback came like recently with time, but like back in the day it was like, oh man, he's from the jungle, you know what I'm saying? You just son for a minute,
Wow.
But maybe at the time, I took it as kids' jokes, just how everybody like, oh, your mama fat, just like, just like your mama jokes. It's not necessarily that your mama actually fat, but it's just jokes that kids say.
I think a lot of my experience with colourist comments weren't experienced in primary school, because I went to a predominantly white school, so it was either you're a chocolate bar, like there was no such thing as gradients of colour that were referenced. It was just you're black, innit? So it's just me and another black girl, that's it, and we're just chilling. So more so it was secondary school where I started to notice that I was dark skinned and not just black, and it wasn't so much of don't sit in the sun, it was just your blick. And it's, I wasn't afforded the privilege of staying away from the sun to prevent getting darker. I was already the consequence of staying in the sun. So it wasn't, unlike you, it wasn't for me a joke. It was it felt like an attack, rightly so.
Right.
And it was more so something that became conditioning, something that was repeated, something that was mocked at. It was a joke for them, definitely, for the people that were saying it, but for me, it was stepping into a new environment and then being told that the body I've been in for the past 11 years is now inadequate, or is inherently problematic, and too much of something that I can't control.
Yeah, like when you just said the whole you being in a predominantly white environment and then you just being black, I can totally relate to that because I was in a predominantly white country for 3 years, and with my thing with colorism is, okay, if we're going through like primary, secondary, and then university. In primary school, I had no idea like what being like, you know, lighter skin or darker skin was. In secondary school, I was called white all the time, which was
called white by who?
do you understand? Like, it made no sense to me. Like
By white people?
No. I went to secondary school in Nigeria. So like my Nigerian friends would be like, "Oh, you're so white. She's so white. She's so white. She's so this. She's so that." Which, for me, was like I could never really understand because I'm just as black as the next person. But because of like I would say my background, my makeup, my genetic makeup, like they would tease me about being white. My mom, for instance, is a lot lighter than me, so she would always tell me you're not light skinned. She would always be like, "Oh, you're not light skinned." So I never like had it in my head that I was light skinned. But then, like in secondary school, everyone's like, "Oh, you're so white," and I was just like, okay. And then finally, when I went to university, it was the complete opposite. Like I would talk to my friends in Nigeria, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, but you should fit right in. Like you're fair, so you should fit right in." And I'm like, "Are you guys crazy? Like, are you insane? I'm black." Like, they don't see a light-skinned black person. They don't know that I have any part of me is white. They don't know my grandma is white. They don't know any of that. So, like, that's not their business. They see me and they see a black person.
So do you consider yourself light-skinned?
Do I consider myself
Or
light-skinned?
black? What do you consider yourself to be?
I just consider myself black.
You don't consider yourself to be light-skinned?
I mean, I don't know, but I get told you see, this is the thing, right? I get told I'm light-skinned a lot. But I don't think that that's the thing. Based off of my mom and then based off of living in Estonia for 3 years, I don't think that I am light skinned or like any of that. I just think that I'm black and that's that.
Do you mind me asking? Sorry. What is your your background?
Oh, I'm just a tiny bit white. Like my grandma is white, not even my mom.
So Estonia?
Yes, my grandma is Estonian. So that's the thing. Estonians will look at me like, how are you even Estonian in the first place? Because you're black, so how are you like? As far as they're concerned, if you're Estonian, you're white. So they're looking at me like, where'd you say you're Estonian from? You know, like.
And then Nigerians be like.
And then Nigerians be like, you should fit right in now, like. You're not fair, you know. So I got that. I got both ends of that, which was ridiculous to me. I mean, it is ridiculous, honestly.
No, I mean I hear you, but like, okay, so for me, I look at myself and definitely say I'm a dark skinned brother.
Okay.
I'm sure you would consider yourself a dark skinned girl. But it's funny that for you were like, hey, I don't know if I'm a light skinned girl. I'm just a black girl. Is there a reason why you're not gonna? Because I'd say conventionally, like looking at you based on how we perceive the different shades of black, you would be categorized as a lighter skinned.
I am lighter skinned, but like my thing is that when I compare myself to other like light skinned people, I don't see myself as light skin, if that makes any sense.
Is there a persona and identity behind it that you don't want to?
Oh no, it has nothing to do with that. Like if it's like in a conventional environment, like how you said, like if it's based off of how people perceive me to be, I will tell you that I'm light skinned. Okay, like if it's just based off of how you look at me. But based off of living in Estonia for 3 years and just realizing that like to certain races there's no difference. Based off of that,
no matter what,
exactly. Based off of that, I would just say that I'm black. But like if it's just based off of like being around other black people and just like conventional, like I would say okay, yes, I am light skinned. But I've just been in an environment for like 3 years that has conditioned me to just see myself as being black and nothing else.
Right.
They don't see the difference between me and somebody that's like 3 or 4 tones darker, or 3 or 4 tones lighter. Right. It's not even my mother, who is shades and shades and shades lighter than me, still experiences the same forms of racism that I would experience, same forms of racism that somebody who's even darker than me would experience. So for me, I'm just black in that regard. But yeah, if it comes to like the normal like oh, you just see me on set and you're another black person. That's the truth is, the only way that you would say, oh, you're light skinned is if you're like another person of color, honestly. Because if it's
so you don't think white people can sort of do the distinction?
I won't say that. Yeah, no, I would say white people who are not around that many people of color, like Estonia. Estonia is a tiny country.
Yeah.
There's not many. There's not many people of color in Estonia. There's not many black people in Estonia. So they definitely can. They do not differentiate between darker skin tones and lighter skin tones.
For them, it's just black.
For them, it's just like it's literally just black and white.
I think that takes me to the next statement, which says, no matter where you go in the world, everyone is trying to get away from black. Because I think a lot of times people think colorism is a black issue, but it happens all around the world. In Asia, Latin America, being the darker you are anywhere in the world, everybody's trying to get away from that. Why do you think that is?
I actually agree. It's crazy how anti-black the world is. I think it stems from history in terms of racial hierarchy. So in, like, I know in the Asian community, they see it as class. So if you're darker, it's considered you've been working in the rural jobs like farming.
So you've been in the sun for too long?
Yeah.
The caste systems.
Yeah, and then if you're lighter, you do office jobs, you're indoors, that means you have higher wages, you're richer, a higher class. So with that, within their Asian community, it's like you prefer to look lighter so you look richer. However, there are still negative, the way they act towards black people or people of darker skin tones is still negative. Like that aren't Asian. I'm not saying all Asian people, but it still happens. So even though within their community they see different skin tones based on their class, they still have negative reactions towards people of darker skin compared to white people, basically.
Yeah, I'll say it has a lot to do with colonialism and just the white agenda. Like, spreading the whole white is right. And, the closer you are to whites, then, the more desirable you are, both to men and to women. So there's that, of course. But then I will say that the world nowadays, like in the world, everybody wants to be black until it's actually time to be black. Yeah. Like they want to appropriate black culture. They want to do the cornrows, the Kim Kardashian boxer braids. Okay, what is that even? They want to do, they love hip hop. They want to tan their skin and blackfish until it's actually time to be a black person. You see, they want to adopt our culture until it's time to actually stand and say, yes, I am black. I can't wipe the skin off. I can't wipe this tan off. This is my actual skin tone. This is my color. Yeah. But yeah, I really do agree with what you're saying about the whole history.
Yeah.
I feel like most of this was started with colonialism. They come in and they tell you, okay, yes, I'm white, and so I'm the standard of perfection. I'm the standard of beauty. Smaller noses, thinner bodies. All of that, and that's what we were taught.
Yeah.
Even when it comes down to Christianity, what is used to depict God and what's used to depict the devil, white, black. I mean, all these things they might just be these little subconscious, that kind of provoke you to think that one color or one race is superior to the other. I mean, that's also what was used to, to back slavery. It was literally used to hold down an entire race by saying that white is superior, being white is superior to being black. And it's also, the fuel for racism as well. So yeah.
I think there's also, in the ways the languages we use to describe colours, things like describing darkness or blackness, the connotations, let alone negative connotations that we're taught from primary school. So when we speak of black, even in for example, GCSE A-levels, where you have to psychoanalyze a piece of text. When it's white, it's ethereal, it's purity, it's innocence. When it's black, it's demonic. It's these things that even Othello, the language used to describe Othello in it's always the black ram, the this, the this. There's so much negative connotations surrounding blackness, and not blackness as it pertains to race, but dark skin, and just any ounce of darkness. And I think that semantic field around the way we speak about these things is so important, because it's ingrained in us from primary school, and you grow up thinking that so black is bad, white is good. Very basically, if you ask a child, there are several researchers, and I see them all the time where it's they ask the children, "Oh, pick this doll. Which one is pretty?" So they pick the white doll. And it's like, where did you learn that from? And it isn't the child isn't self-hating. They're just carefree. They'll go and play in the playgrounds afterwards. But it's essentially showing us how insidious this is, and how insidious colorism is, and how insidious it is. This anti-blackness is, even from a very, very early age. I even remember, like, I think I came to this country when I was 4. I can't remember, probably year R, I suppose, yeah. We would colour our skin in. And I just thought of this memory now. And I wanted to colour my skin in, but there was no, like, we used crayon. Well, there was no crayon for me. It was just like, oh, use the black one. And I was like, I don't want to use the black one. not because I'm scared of, like, the dark colour, but it's because I want a colour that's brown. That's who I am. Yeah. I want that to be represented. But even then, obviously, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm not being represented. But I was thinking, why can't I colour myself normally? Everybody else is colouring themselves cream and yellow, but me, I can't have a crayon. And having things like that from a young age already tells you to exclude yourself because of what you tangibly cannot control, the things that are naturally produced in yourself. You realise that you're a minority when it's so embedded in us. And it then later manifests as this society perpetuates colorism, it perpetuates racism, it perpetuates discrimination against those who are darker skinned. And those seeds that are sown from such a little age are watered down slowly as you go through school, as you go through workplaces, as you just go through society.
So what responsibility do we as Black people hold in perpetuating these standards?
A lot of it. I think...
Because I think sometimes, which we blame it on white people a lot, which is true, but I do think we also play a part in perpetuating.
Definitely. I agree. I think with that though, it's important to locate its origins where it originated.
Yes.
And it's very important to do that and then not negate that point because it's fundamental to how we then perpetuate it.
Yes.
And I think understanding that where it's come from and the agenda it came from helps us to be a bit easier on ourselves when we discuss these things, because yes, while we do perpetuate it in our media, the media is coming and is influenced from structures, from white supremacy that is beyond us and has been beyond us for hundreds of years.
But okay, you mentioned the media, which I completely agree, but when we look at Black guys that say, dark girl, you're too dark, I'm not going to date you because you're too dark. Where does the self-responsibility come in?
I have personal experience with these things. Like I mentioned, starting year 7 and entering a new environment. The first people to call me blick, the first people to hate on what I look like were Black men, dark-skinned men. And I didn't know what blick meant, so I had to go home and Google it, and that's when the upset started. Because as they were calling it to me, I was like, okay, so this doesn't sound nice, but let me go and search it. So I searched the word and I realised what it is, and then it becomes this rough and tumble. And at a young age, even though I didn't understand things like, I didn't have a word for colorism, I didn't have a word for I'm being discriminated against in this way, I knew what was happening and I would combat it, and it led to a lot of problems. But I think that isn't a responsibility that I take on my head because I didn't begin this, and I personally am not perpetuating it. We are victims of white supremacy, and when victims of any situation are doing the best with what they can, sometimes that compassion is needed, and I'm not making.
But are we the best? Are we doing the best that we can? That's my question.
I think it's quite unfair almost to look back in certain situations and say, well, you're not doing this, and you should have done this, and you should have done this, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and the labels and the stereotypes attached to us aren't organic. They are things that have been imposed on us regardless. So to look at the ways that we react to things, we are doing the best we can, because the best we can is whatever we choose to do in that moment. For example, the way I combat colorism would be a different way that you combat colorism, and I can't tell you that to a degree, I can't tell you that the way you're combating it is inadequate, because we are human beings, and when we don't allow ourselves that freedom and that compassion, we're kind of doing their job for them in the sense that we have to be this, we have to be that, but we're human beings, first and foremost.
I think we do play a big role in this day and age. It's almost as if, how do we expect others to respect us and start?
If we don't respect ourselves.
Yeah, if we can't respect ourselves. Like you said earlier, it was the Black men that was calling you blick. Saying, when I was saying about like in primary school, where we'll just go underneath the trees, it wasn't the white people or the other races that were doing this. It was within us
The
black
community.
people, the black students, yeah. We were the ones thinking, oh, we don't want to get darker, let's go underneath the trees for shade, let's avoid going to the sun. All the way up to, even in secondary school as well. And it was, the word blick was more in the black community. It wasn't, I don't know, an Asian guy saying it. It wasn't a Turkish person. It was us black people. We were starting it within ourselves. So how do we accept being black is fine if we can't even, how do we expect others to accept it if we can't accept it ourselves?
And as dark-skinned black women, I think a lot of the time we are expected to have the moral high ground, have a lot of the emotion to understand, oh, they were young, like black men have changed and things like that. And I really feel strongly that whenever a dark-skinned woman shares her plight with colorism, that she shouldn't be met with what responsibility do you take in the situation? Because we are the victims, and I think black women are never afforded the privilege of victimhood. They're never afforded, this happened to me and I'm sad and I don't want to think about it, I don't want to be the big person, I want to cry about it. Yeah, and if I say I hate all black men, then let me say it. Because they've been the genesis of my trauma, do you know? And I think a lot of the time the onus is on us to fix things, or the onus is on us to be so understanding, and it's tiring. Because even currently now, I'm only 19, so I've got a lot of life ahead of me. And I've had to do a lot of growing up from year 7 to now to go through, okay, so the people that look like me are calling me ugly, they're calling me blick. I'm not attractive to them. And to then, oh no, sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Oh, do you have tissue?
Oh no, I don't.
Does anyone have?
This is so jarring, but I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
I'm actually fine, by the way. Yeah, the processes, the mental gymnastics you have to go through, like the way your psychology is formed when the people that look like you despise your skin and they don't know why themselves. And even as you said, I found it really interesting earlier when you said it was just a joke to you kind of thing. And not to like insult your experience in any way, but it's black guys weren't teased to the extent that their desirability wasn't jeopardized by the darkness of their skin. It was the black women, the dark-skinned black women, and I think it was me and this other girl who was very dark, and she was in another school. And when I saw her, I was like, whoa! And she was darker than me, and she got hell. Wow. And it's living in those conditions, and my other friends who were black just weren't as dark as me, and they couldn't say anything for me because it's not them. Do you know what I mean? It took a lot for me to get out of that. I hate all black men. They all hate me. They're all disgusted by me. Even now, I'm still unlearning it. Like, for a lot of the time, even in secondary school, like I'd see a black guy, even if it wasn't those that tormented me, I'd flinch, or like I'd feel something like
trauma.
Oh, I'll cross the road, or like I'd be defensive straight away. You'll think I'm rude, and it's like I'm just trying to be ready. Yeah, I'm preparing myself for the inevitable insult that is coming my way. So I think a lot of the time, the responsibility, I take great issue with having the responsibility placed on black women, because I think we are forced to be responsible for everybody else's inadequacy, everybody else's ignorance, because a lot of the time we tend to be the most educated in the problems that affect us the most. We tend to be the only ones that care about the things that harm us, whereas black men have the fetishization from white women and even patriarchy, because they're still men, but black women are truly at the end of the totem pole. So when it comes to responsibility, I think credit should be given where it's due to white supremacy. And in terms of perpetuation, I think that definitely falls on the black men in the community that aren't there for us a lot of the time.
I completely agree with that.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I agree with the point, the fact that at least for I think as comparing a dark-skinned guy to a dark-skinned girl, for a guy, the desirability aspect of it doesn't really come in, you know. Because for me, when I looked at it and I told you it was a joke, because I knew it didn't matter what she said. If I still wanted to holler at this girl, you know, I'd still, you know, maybe get her a pop, you know, maybe, you know, do what I can. Because I knew my attractiveness to other people did not hinge on the fact that I was a dark-skinned individual. I think now, so for dark-skinned men now, what happens, I think we have been sort of hypersexualized, you know? Yes. When you look at like interracial pornography, for example, you know, it's this big black man dominates.
Wow, Will, are you actually?
I hope you can find my
Wow.
video, but yeah, but
We don't know
that
what age of, my audience
hypersexualization, you
is.
know?
No, I hear you, yeah.
Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but
No, I'm joking.
but there's that aspect where it's, you know, a black man is looked at this beast that is about to dominate this, you know, frail white woman, you know, there's that. So I think, which is on the other end of desirability, because it's not that you're not desired, it's you're desired to an extreme extent, you know?
I wanted to ask a question. Not that I'm expecting you to speak on behalf of every black man, but maybe from your experience, can you give us any insight as to why there's so much sort of self-hate when it comes to black men not wanting to date black women or not finding them attractive to a certain extent?
That's very good. Sitting here listening to you guys speak, I'm still trying to think why a dark-skinned guy would hate on a dark-skinned girl. Because I'm thinking your mama's dark-skinned.
Exactly.
Your auntie's dark-skinned. Your grandma's dark-skinned. You never go home and say, "Yo, dark, how did you give birth to me?" You know, like you would never hate on your family. You look at these people different. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around how you look at your dark-skinned sister, quote unquote, and be like, I really don't have an answer to that. I don't know why. Maybe it's too deep into our subconscious. That
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Will. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to put you on the spot. I have to tell a story.
I
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Will. I'm sorry. I have to.
Right.
So me and Will went to an event. It was, what was it again? It was
It doesn't matter.
Yes. What is that called? Speed dating. Yes, it was speed dating, and Will was picking the girls, and there was around 5 girls lined up for him, all of different shades: dark skin, light skinned, plus size, small size. And I know Will very well, and there was a specific girl that you could just see that they bounced really well with each other, but she was dark skinned. And before we went, I had told him, I said, "I know you're gonna pick the light skinned girl."
Oh my god.
And he was like, "No, I'm not."
I didn't say it like that first.
Well, but you said he wasn't going to. And anyway, so we got to the event, and he ended up, at the end, there was a dark-skinned girl and a light-skinned girl. And I'm telling you, I know you, and I know the dark-skinned girl, they had so much in common, and you could just see, like, the chemistry.
Yeah.
But Will picked the light-skinned girl. And I was like, why did you pick her? Like, you guys don't have anything in common. And what did you tell me at the end?
That I should have gone with dark skinned girl.
Why did you say that?
Here's the thing, like when we were going. No, hear me out.
Like you should have gone with the dark skin girl.
Hear me out. Right. When we were going there, I categorically told you that was a problem that I would face. I mentioned it to you that a lot of what if I end up with a dark skinned girl and a light skinned girl, and I was very scared of that situation, and that's essentially what happened. Right?
What's the problem with that?
Yeah,
Why can't you base? Why can't you be
Now
based
because
off of
I feel like
personality and
why
color? Why would we? This is my question.
But I don't think.
Why was picking between the dark skinned girl and the light skinned girl your problem? Not because between a girl that's like smart.
I don't think
it wasn't because I don't think it was because I wasn't looking at it from because when I was going for the thing, I wasn't going to look for
Either one or the other.
I was going to look for. I was just going for fun. I was going for fun or like just to have a good time, right? As a joke. And so I knew just because of the talk that there is around colorism, if I'm the one in that spot, it's now me perpetuating all the stereotypes.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck in this spot where I'm like, okay, I bounce really well with this dark skinned girl. Like it logically makes sense for me to go with this dark skin, right? But then on the other side, I'm looking at it like there's this other girl, like I really, it's illogical.
I honestly think
it's a very illogical. It's a very illogical choice. I do not have a reason. I cannot sit here and tell you that I have a reason as to why I chose the light skinned girl over the dark skinned girl, which I think maybe I was perpetuating stereotypes.
Okay, this
maybe
reminds
that's
me of something I wanted to say.
I really have no answer for it.
This reminds me of something I wanted to say to you. You were talking about how we have to think about the root of the problem. Of colorism being the white man and bringing the culture and all of that. I completely agree with you, but at the same time, I feel like we also need to hold men responsible for their 100%. Actions now. Like, so I understand, because one thing I have noticed is that a lot of men will blame misogyny, will blame colorism on, oh yeah, we're colonized, as a lot of Nigerian men. I'm going to speak on Nigerian men because these are the people that I have been around. These are the people I can speak on. They will tell you, oh yeah, misogyny, yeah, you know, before the colonialism, before all of that, we were not misogynistic, but you are now. Before colonialism, we were not too interested in, but you are now. So I don't like the fact that they tend to constantly, or the ones I have spoken to, especially on serious topics like colonialism and colorism, race relations, stuff like that, they tend to blame all their actions on, oh yeah, they caused it, and they refuse to take responsibility for their actions now. And that is my problem. I completely agree. Find the root, you know, point out that this is the cause, but then we should not now allow them to say, okay, to constantly blame all their actions and inactions on the root of the problem, because right now we are in the problem, and as black men especially, because you said something that really just touched, that really just went straight to my heart, like how you said black men are not there for black women. That is completely true, and they need to stand up now. It's enough. That's the unfortunate thing.
And
is it okay though?
I think we've definitely, what you're saying,
because we're always there for them, but are they, like, is it okay?
But I think at some point there needs to become an understanding that there are so many things that we face as black people, and then things we face as black women, and then dark-skinned black women, and then black men, and then dark-skinned black men, and then light-skinned. There are so many oppressions that that is imposed on us, so much so that you can't expect. Not you. I will not allow myself to sit and wait for black men to then be my champion.
Yes, definitely.
Maybe in the next 2 years I will evolve and say there's forgiveness in my heart, or like I would expect this from a black man. But for right now, I've come to a point where I do it for myself. I don't need the validation that comes from black men, and it shouldn't be that way. But unfortunately, that's how it has to be.
So do you think? This so comes about because black men feel they have the power over the situation. When you look at black men and black women, do you think it's because black men feel that black women really don't have that many options, so we can act though however the hell we want to act?
The difference between black women and black men is how selfless we are as women. We are ready to. I won't say me personally, I won't say you personally. I mean, like, as a community, black women are very selfless. We're ready to put ourselves out there.
Is it something that's innate, or is it something that has been imposed on us too?
It might have been imposed on us, but it's how we are now. So I'm trying to just, I definitely think that it's something that has probably been imposed on us, you know, based off of like past trauma and all of that. But it is something but it's what we are now. We are as a community, we are very ready to like stand up for what's wrong. We're ready to like be the ones that are out there. Black men, on the other hand, have been taught to self-preservation. They're about themselves. They're ready to protect themselves.
You not think like, so a black man will go out there and act a fool, but I think like at the back of his mind, if all else fails, they still have in their head that I will still have a black woman.
Yes, and that's
but do black women feel the same way in the fact that
we're not afforded that privilege.
If all else, and that's what I'm asking. So do you not think black men feel they have that?
I don't think it's
luxury,
about.
dare I say, that they feel that if all else fails, we have black.
I don't think it's something they think about.
Yeah,
that's what
I think
black women got
think
themselves. The strongest people I've seen in my life are black women.
I think that's true. I think that's true because
black women have I feel like black women have, if black women are nothing.
But that narrative needs to stop, because when they always think black women, independent, strong, they're able, that means we're not allowed to be victims. We're not allowed to show that we are sometimes weak, or we have
victims.
Because it's like they'll be fine. No one needs to help them. No, someone should help us. We shouldn't be alone all the time. So that narrative needs to stop. It shouldn't be, oh, because you're a black woman, you're definitely strong. You can definitely be independent. No, every black woman's different. They go through different experiences. Don't just assume because I'm a black woman I'll be fine with things, and I should be able to take, pardon my French, the shit that I'm given. But
I think also with that, I think I agree with you. It's just I wouldn't have used the words power or like power, because in my head it was almost settling, and for me there's no power in settling. I feel like I've had conversations with black men, some black men, and they've
wait, why would you call it settling?
I'd say settling for them, like to them, not as I think it's settling.
Got you.
So I've spoken to them, and it's a thing where I've been told, oh, the white girls are easy, etc., etc. Like we can use them, but I'll have to end up with a black girl. Like it's something they know. Like I'll do what I need to do now, but I will end up with a black girl. Even on Twitter, like you see tweets like this all the time. I will end up with a black woman. I will end up with a black, and they have the luxury to know that black women will be there for them when it's time, when it's necessary.
What I'm saying. Yeah.
But I don't think it's something. Yes, I'm describing a conscious play of thoughts and something that they're doing actively themselves. But I don't think they're thinking, I have the power. I think they're thinking, this is something that is normal and I can just do and it's organic and it's fine. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a difference in knowing you have a power and then executing it. Or, there's a power in knowing it and executing it. And there is also the instance where you are just perpetuating or you are exemplifying this narrative that you don't have the term for yet. Do you know what I mean? Like we can look at it and say that you have the power, but I don't think internally they think I have the power.
Yes,
and
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
You know,
they don't think in that sense that I have the power to decide to do all this and then go back to my. I just feel like it's just something that's almost even natural.
Yeah.
It's something. It's like a fish in water. Like it doesn't. It's surrounded by water, but like it's in that situation where like it comes to realize that there's always gonna be a black girl there. Like, so let me go back to food for a little bit.
Move on from
I mean, it's we need to move away from that. I absolutely agree. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, is it, do you think the problem is, now, as you say, I agree with you, we shouldn't have the fact that black women got nobody else to look out for them. So who do we want to look out for black women? Is it black men?
I think the day we say we're waiting for black men to look for black women is the day we failed.
Yes.
Because I want some historical evidence or some tangible proof of where black men have took it upon themselves to stand up for black women. And I know it sounds like I'm generalizing a lot, but I think this is something that requires generalization. Because we can generalize that black women are the emotional support for black men. And why can we do that? Because there are several instances historically and now.
Right.
Like things surrounding so many issues from LGBTQ things, just everything, where black women are typically the forefront. But when it's time to look for what black men have done for the protection of their own women, crickets.
The first statement is, as soon as a black man gets a check, he gets himself a white woman.
Honestly, I don't know where the lie is in that statement. Like, where is the lie? I think we've seen it in, professions as footballers, basketball players, soccer players, even businessmen. I think anytime a black man reaches a certain level of success and they try to assimilate to the new white space to which they now belong or they think they belong, I think for them to prove themselves that they do belong in that place and that they want to be afforded that same respect that the other white men get, I think it's important for them to have a white woman on their side. I think that's for them the ultimate prize, to be accepted into that world that they now belong.
So I know a lot of you guys said that black men always end up with a black woman. So they do what they have to do and then they can go back because they know they have that person there waiting for them. But what about the men that get successful and gets themselves a white woman?
So
you see, this is
black
this is what I was trying to say when she said, like, this is also what I was trying to add when the whole discussion about falling back to a black woman is like it's just this whole mentality that white is right. So the status,
it's a trophy.
So when you have the status change, it also comes with the white woman on your arm, just to have that little extra little. What? Like, why? This is my real question. Why? For what reason? And it just goes back to Will again. It's like the whole O.J. Simpson thing that you mentioned. As soon he had a wife, she was black. As soon as he made it big.
Oh wait, they weren't married.
No, he had a baby mom.
Yeah,
sorry, he had a baby mom.
But they were together before he got big in American football, when he was in college or high school.
Yeah, college, right.
Yeah, and then obviously as he got big, started making money, became famous, and got into like started to experience a bit of white privilege. He got himself a white blonde woman, but then when tables turned and he's in trouble now because he's accused of killing her and her lover, he falls back on the black community for support, pulling out the race cards, calling for the church, calling for the black women to support him because he's a charmer as well. So.
But we did. That's the thing.
And
that
that's
we did.
where we failed.
Can I ask a question? Now, do you think So I mean, society has economically it's favored the white people essentially, right? How we are based economically, like the favors of white people. Do you think when black people start succeeding, they start ending up in spaces that are more so white than black? Does that make sense?
I think that's an excuse.
No, I'm just putting a
Do you
point
not
out
think
there.
that there's a
I'm just putting a
no,
point
but
out
Will,
there.
for every like successful black man, do you not believe that there's an equal match? Like,
But this is
successful
about
black man,
society.
like,
I think the fact is we live under white supremacy and society is patriarchal. And these things tie together to tell us that when a black man is trying to assimilate into white culture, the elite of the elite, when they go there, they want to fit in. And if their sole purpose is to fit in and
Then they
be
have to
successful in that category,
Then
they will
get
play
this.
the part. And it's not right, but conditioning, colorism, discrimination, racism, exploitation, colonialism, all of these things add up. And this is the product. Black men see reaching success, see reaching whiteness essentially as assimilating in any way that they can, and that means having a lighter skinned woman, or if they can't, if light skin is not there, white skin, like a white woman. These are, I think, asking why a lot of the time often irritates me because the why is there. We can read about the why. We write essays about the why. If you study humanities, we know the why.
Do you guys date outside your race? Anything?
would I be willing to?
Would you date outside your race?
It's hard.
It's also interesting because if I do ratio of the abuse I've had from black men compared to abuse I've had from white men, it's like 20 to 1. So you would expect me to be running to the white man. Oh my god! But you're being defensive.
No.
At this point, like it's very.
If you remember the beginning, the stem, the
I think
previous
we're
one.
wrong.
No, because it's a conversation. I thought we were having a conversation.
No,
here,
but
so
this
like,
particular
hold
point,
on,
this
guys, hold on.
particular point.
Why
Because we're saying prioritize listening, and you're saying but. Naturally, I'm a very confident person. It was hard for me to see me. So. No, oh no. What is this?
Just take your time, okay? Just take your time.